Yeah, we're not seeing that at this point. We're on the 101 freeway northbound in the Coinga Pass, coming up on Universal Center Drive. That's going to be the next overcrossing that you will see here. The RV doing, you can tell with SkyMap 7, the real-time speed tracking, about 52 miles an hour. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of traffic in the wake of this vehicle, traveling northbound, a little congestion up around Lancashire and then again around the Hollywood Freeway. But at this point in time, I don't think patrol LAPD officers are going to get too tight on him and try and push him into a mode to travel faster, but it doesn't look like their posture right now is to back off or go into surveillance mode quite yet either. So I don't think they're going to let this suspect go. And if they do have confirmation that there's a toddler on board, boy, that really makes it challenging for the strategy to try and get this to come to an end. Yeah, well, CHP will be on this as well. They'll assist until it stays on the freeway for a while, and then they'll probably take over, especially if it continues too far to the north. But there's a really good shot of the suspect. We can tell now for certain it appears to be a man. We're not traveling at too high a rate of speed, but, you know, it becomes challenging because you can't put out a spike strip, because if you do that, the vehicle would probably turn over. You can't do a pit maneuver because the vehicle is just too heavy, and it's just going to be challenging. So CHP will be assisting. They're calling ahead. They know exactly where this vehicle is headed at this point in time. It wouldn't surprise me, just what we've seen in the past historically, if the suspect goes to an area he's familiar with and might head back up into Santa Clarita. And that's pure speculation, but that's happened in a lot of pursuits that we've covered in the past. But if there's any good news, there we go. They got the real-time speed tracking on SkyMap 7, and we're looking at about 54 miles an hour. We're not seeing the vehicle swerve in and out of traffic. Obviously, he's aware that the LAPD vehicle is right behind him, and I think that right now they're probably content to just follow this guy because really no one's at risk. But when it comes to a stop, that's when it's really going to get challenging. If the suspect does have a weapon, it becomes extremely dangerous. If there's a toddler on board, how do you handle that? You don't want to even fire at a suspect with a weapon if in the line of fire behind that suspect there could be a child on board that RV. So there, you know, the dynamic is just so huge. There's so many things that can happen. It makes police work so difficult. But once again, if there's any good news, it's that the rate of speed has not been excessive. And we are northbound on the 101 freeway coming up on the Ventura Freeway interchange. So if he stays in that lane, he'll continue on to what is the Hollywood, the 170 freeway, and that would continue up through North Hollywood and towards the 5 freeway interchange. That appears to be what's going to happen here, but we'll have to see as he continues north. Yeah. Possible. Try and get in front of him a little. He's on the 170 now. I think he'll be coming up on Victory Boulevard here in a moment. So we are in North Hollywood, just crossing Oxnard. You can see on the bottom of your screen there on SkyMap 7. So what a useful tool that is. We're trying to get in front of the RV a little bit and get a little better look at the suspect. But you're right. I mean, he appears to be fairly calm. A lot of times we'll see a lot of action or a lot of movement inside, and we are not seeing that at this point in time with the suspect. He appears to be calm. Maybe making a phone call. Looks like he just got on his cell phone there. We do understand now that CHP is in the process of taking over this pursuit. Now that it's on the freeway, they will be better prepared to handle this. If the suspect gets off and gets onto the surface streets, they'll probably move that over into another authority that has more units on the surface streets and has more familiarity with that particular area that the suspect would get off if he does. But 65 miles an hour now, a little higher rate of speed. That's pretty high for a vehicle that weighs this much. And I can see what you can't see up ahead. Probably in about another 2 miles or so, right at the 175 split, there's going to be some congestion. But it's not completely stopped. A lot of times it gets a little sketchy when you come to an area with a suspect like this and the freeway's completely shut down due to traffic. And then the officers are right behind. It just makes it so difficult not knowing what the suspect may do. But I don't see that in the short term here on the 170 north onto the 5 north. But right now we're on the 170 northbound in North Hollywood, and I think we're going to come up here on Sherman Way in just a moment. It's in that right seat. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, you're right. The traffic conditions have been pretty light. There's a little bit of a slowdown coming up here probably in the next half a mile. So right where the 170 north really ends and it turns into the 5 northbound. If you continue, we were able to peek in pretty tight. We didn't see any child or anyone in the right front seat. Now that doesn't tell us a lot because it's a big vehicle, and who knows if there is a child, if they could be in the back. But certainly we didn't see anyone in the passenger side of the RV. And what's going to happen here in a moment, actually, the freeway will almost come to a stop. It doesn't completely stop, and that will give us a real good idea, a little bit at least, the mindset of the suspect, if he's willing to try and swerve in and out of the vehicles, if he's willing to hit one of the vehicles. If you were with us earlier today, we had a pursuit, I think started in Santa Ana, ended in Bellflower of a stolen vehicle, and that suspect ran into several other cars trying to get away until they did the pit maneuver. They can't do the pit maneuver, especially in an area like this or with a vehicle like this, just because it's so heavy. The center of gravity is so high, it could easily flip over, and certainly they don't want anyone to get hurt. So I think with what we're seeing right now at these speeds and without the suspect driving too erratically, they're probably just content to follow. Yeah, there's no... Yeah, and it'll get challenging here in a moment because I believe even that far left lane, which is a carpool lane, and I think the carpool lane ends, if I'm not mistaken, traveling on the 5 northbound. I think, well, maybe it's hard for me to see out the window. Maybe the carpool lane is going to be okay for a moment. You see in the top of your screen that transition was slow. But then coming out of the carpool lane, once we get on the 170 freeway or the 5, we're on the 5 northbound now, just making the transition. And I didn't see the carpool transition from further south, so it looks like he's going to be fine through here. And even on the 5 north until about the 118, and then we start to see some heavy traffic there. So we're not going to see that moment of pause, if you will, where it comes to a stop, and then we really get an idea what the suspect may do for about a couple miles. And then at that point, at the 118, traffic does start to really snarl up. possible. You know, it's pure speculation, but it covered a lot of the pursuits over the years, and many times a suspect will head back to an area that they're familiar with. And then you start talking about domestic violence. Maybe, I mean, pure speculation here, but if the suspect does have the child on board, maybe he thought he was going to get away with the child and take off, and then when he was spotted and picked up in this pursuit, he realizes he's not going to get away. I can't believe anyone would be that foolish to think they're going to, you know, be able to elude police in an RV. And maybe at this point he's just headed back to an area that he's familiar with. It's certainly at this point in time that he's headed that direction. Whether or not it'll actually go into Santa Clarita and go onto the surface streets where we had a pursuit earlier this morning, it's hard to tell. But certainly we will follow it, and we will find out. I can see ahead, and I think for the most part it's smooth sailing at these types of speeds, around 60 miles an hour, a little faster than the flow in the carpool lane, all the way up until we get actually closer to the 210, and then things will really start to slow down. But overall today, traffic has been fairly light. So at this point in time, as far as the safety of the motorist on the freeways, that's kind of good. I think it's better that they can actually travel in the carpool lane without having to swerve in and out or hit heavy traffic at this point. It might just be better overall. And, you know, hopefully they're talking with him. Maybe they got that cell phone number from the wife. Police are able to speak with him, try and talk him out of this thing peacefully, let him know that there is no way this could end. That was very close there to that vehicle. You saw that. This needs to end. If they can get into his head, they can talk to him. Maybe they can talk him into a situation where he gives himself up without incident and no one's hurt. Yeah, I had someone else talking to me, Colleen, so I missed the actual question. They were giving me some information that Sheriff SWAT is the last vehicle. We won't go that far off the pursuit, and they have a hostage negotiator on board, so they do have someone in the pursuit at this point in time. We understand Sheriff SWAT that can really try and reason with this individual if they can get him on the phone. And when you see him on the phone, you know, well, the wife must have that cell phone number. You would assume. Obviously, we don't know for certain. So hopefully they've established communication. We are on the 5 freeway northbound. We just crossed the 118 freeway, and we'll head it up towards the merge at the 405 where the 405 ends, and then the 5 northbound up into the Newhall Pass. It's a little congested up towards Roxford, which is south of the 210, but the freeway doesn't stop, so it looks like this can continue on for some time, probably without having to stop and having to swerve in and out of traffic. At least that's what it looks like from my vantage point at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, and when you, sorry about that, but when you think about, he's a parolee as well, and so obviously he's broken his parole, so he's looking at prison time, I would imagine. I'm no expert on exactly what what prison terms are or what in a case like this would be, but I've been somewhat familiar with it. And if he's breaking parole by committing this type of crime, if the child is on board and he doesn't have any type of custody, I mean, it's kidnapping, it's child endangerment, you've got this vehicle not stopping. So you have a parolee who's been in prison, he's on parole, and he's breaking that parole, he's committing more crimes. So certainly I would think, I have no idea what type of sentence it would be, but I would think it'd be somewhat extensive. And so that's probably going through the mind of the suspect at this point in time as well. This isn't like I could just pull over and maybe I'll get 6 months in jail. This is going to be a very, very serious incident. Thank you. Where did we get that, Jay? Can I say or not? But but we believe that to be true. Is that correct? Got it. Okay. What's his speed, Rob? Thanks, man. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and you know, there's no absolutes a lot of times when we cover these, so you have to bear with us. But we have some disturbing information, and that is we believe that at this point in time, that the police believe, CHP and the Sheriff's Department and the LAPD that are all basically on this. CHP is the lead agency at this point in time on the freeway, but they believe the suspect is armed, and they believe that both children may be on board the RV. So, you know, it's tough because we really don't want to speculate too much, but we do believe that they're going with that scenario right now, and usually they know that kind of stuff, and so we are presuming a little bit here, but well, we've been hoping, you know, when we've been talking, that that was not the case. I mean, frightening for the children, there's no doubt about that, and then the danger to them, and boy, it's really, it's scary. Where are we shooting to, Rob? Keep your altitude up. You're staying on the 5. 14 or the 5? 4-5. Thank you. We're working on it. Do you have our signal now, Jay? We're on O. Jay, do you copy? window down. Smoking. No, there's been no change there. We are up into the Santa Clarita area, so we know that earlier this morning this same RV was being pursued by, it was Santa Clarita Sheriff's deputies, and they let the vehicle go. Now it's taken over by CHP. We're northbound on the 5 at McBean Parkway. It'd be interesting to see if the suspect gets off of the 5 freeway in the Santa Clarita area. I can tell you we're getting a little light drizzle. That could complicate things. It can also tell you up ahead you can't see it in this shot, but I'm not too sure how much further north we can continue on the 5 freeway past, say, Castaic because of the weather conditions. So we're just starting to get a light rain, and that complicates things if it gets. Yeah, it's really prevalent right here. We are getting rain in the helicopter. We're 1,000 feet above the ground, but I think by the time we get up towards the 126 and the 5, and then up into Castaic, it's going to be a light rain, and it will make the road slippery. So that's going to be a big challenge. A challenge for us will be being able to continue and to have a signal once we get low level up along the 5 freeway up past Castaic. That could be challenging for us to hit a mountaintop. Sometimes it can be difficult if we can't fly high enough. So we'll see what happens. They have shut down a lot of the off-ramps when we see this vehicle go by. So they are making sure that they let as few people on the freeway as possible. It looks to me like the speed has been pretty consistent. We'll go in with a real-time speed tracking. We're looking at 60 miles an hour. I think at one point the suspect was up to about 70. But it looks to me up ahead, by the time we get to the 126, there will be rain on the freeway, not just up here at altitude. So that is going to affect things as well because it's just going to be so slippery for this vehicle. It'll just make another aspect, another challenge for officers. And we will be at the 126 here in a moment. So we're getting up to the north end of the Santa Clarita Valley at the moment. Yeah. It's going to get wet here in a minute. Yeah, we are. We're in some light rain now, and as it continues northbound, it's going to be a real challenge for us to stay on it because of the low clouds up ahead north of Castaic. Of course, the freeway starts to ascend there, and cloud cover for us is pretty consistent, up around 2,000 to 2,500 feet. But this certainly we are getting a light rain. The freeway from here on up into the Castaic area is going to be wet and slippery. I think at this point, as we follow this, though, and we look at this, you see the windshield wipers just turned on. It gives you an idea that the rain is really starting to come down now. As we look at this, without the suspect driving erratically with the patrol cars behind, LAPD and LA County Sheriff's deputies have a helicopter overhead. They can keep they can be down on this, and we can't in a lot of situations because we have 500 feet that we keep from them. So if the ceiling's too low, they can keep the helicopter overhead. But I think at this point, they're pretty content to just let this individual drive this car at this rate of speed on this freeway until he runs out of gas or finally comes to his senses and decides to stop. We're not seeing him drive recklessly or endangering anyone. It looks like the speed is kicked up, though. If we go to real-time speed tracking there, 62, 63 miles an hour. So a vehicle that big, you start pushing 70 miles an hour on slick roads, it's still very, very dangerous. Got it. Behind us? Got him. Well, we're on the 5 northbound past Lake Hughes Road, which is up past Castaic. This is where the freeway really starts to ascend, so I'd imagine the speeds will be lower, but, you know, more disturbing information now. We start getting specifics, and then we really believe that there's probably children on board. We understand they believe 11-month-old and a 3-year-old. So when you start getting ages, police really do believe that the children are on board that RV. It's really getting wet up here, and there are some low ceilings up ahead. We may be able to continue up towards the pyramid area. It's just, it's hard to tell. You know, we can't get down there with the LAPD because we will not get in their way. When the ceiling starts to come down and then the freeway ascends like that, it can, we can run into difficulties continuing on. But I do believe at this point in time, push in if you would, Rob, we'll get a speed, but I think traveling up this grade, speed is going to be a little slower than what we saw before. And now we're down to 45 miles an hour or so, and it's because it's a pretty steep grade. If you've driven this up past Castaic, up towards the Grapevine, you know that it's difficult for a vehicle like that to travel at too high a rate of speed going uphill. But the weather conditions have gotten worse. It's very slick on the freeway now, but we're not seeing anything erratic. You can see LA County Sheriff with their helicopter right overhead and right behind. The patrol cars are behind as well. We understand SWAT has a negotiator just in case. Maybe they're even on the phone with him. We saw him holding his phone. That could be the case, trying to talk him out of this. And then any hope that possibly the suspect was just heading back to Santa Clarita, back to where this had, there was a pursuit earlier today, that sort of evaporated once we got this far to the north. Hour 10. You know, I'd like to give you a little look at what we're looking at and some perspective here. And, you know, the shot was compressed, so the helicopter wasn't as low as you might think. But, Rob, I want to tilt up and just look at what we're looking at. And I'm not too sure how much longer we can continue, because when we get up a little further, up towards Pyramid, you can see the cloud cover there. Now, whether or not we're going to be able to keep a signal and head through there, it's hard to say at this point. We can come back down, Rob. I just want to give you a little perspective of how hard it's starting to rain and where we're headed on the northbound side of the 5. We're still south of Pyramid. We're north of Castaic, but the rain has been consistent now. I wouldn't say it's heavy, but it's moderate. Traveling at a slow rate of speed. Let's see what our speed tracking gives us. It's probably in the 40s or 30s. Yeah, there we go. It's much slower than that 70 mile an hour that we saw at the high rate on the 5 freeway down in the Pacoima area, and it's a pretty steep grade here. Pull out just a little bit, Rob, because it's a really interesting shot. We're going to lose the, you'll see the mountain there. We'll lose them for just a moment, that hillside. The patrol cars behind, and boy, it really looks sketchy weather-wise for us up ahead, and unless the suspect just would pull over, if he continues northbound up towards the Grapevine, up towards Gorman, we're going to have a very difficult time staying on this. And as I mentioned, you know, the helicopters from the Sheriff's Department, they can fly much lower than we can, and we just won't get down there in their way. So we have a 500-foot buffer from them, and if that puts us in a cloud, then we're pretty much out of luck. Pushing a little around. Cool shot. Only hope. Okay. You know, we are hearing a little information that could lead us to believe that possibly they're talking to the suspect. We can't really get into it. We certainly hope that is the case. And, you know, it's interesting. Maybe we could talk to Danny, because I do believe at a certain altitude we could actually see a little snow. Now, it doesn't seem like it's cold enough for that. I think, you know, we're at 3,000 feet, 3,200. It's probably about 2,500 feet at this point. But up into Gorman, I'm not sure exactly what that altitude is up there. I think around 5 or so, Danny, and we could actually see a little snow. Yeah. Danny, if I could, I hate to interrupt you, but we're going to pull out of this shot, and then you're going to see why. This is about as far north as we can get. We are trying to fly safely. There looks like a little break in the clouds a little further north, but I'm not too sure we're going to be able to continue on up above that pass right there. Just above that mountain range is Pyramid, and that's really pushed right into the vehicle. That's an interesting shot there, that perspective. You see the RV, it's so surreal, and then you see the police cars right behind it. But around that bend, it looks like we are running into a situation with the low clouds that we may not be able to continue. Look at all those patrol cars. Wow. All those patrol cars. 24. Could you bring my mic down, please? Give me sky map. One gave us. We just can't get up past that pass there. Jay, we're departing to the south before we get stuck here. Bring my mic down, please.
Okay, 10-4.
Or copy that, Jay. Okay.
Okay, 10-4.
You can turn my mic down. All right, copy that. Clear back to Van Nuys.